For over 75 years now, we've had two nations, born from the exact same empire, locked in this incredibly bitter rivalry. I mean, it's a conflict that literally began in bloodshed, it's been fought on the highest peaks of the Himalayas, and today it just simmers under the terrifying shadow of nuclear war. So in this explainer, we're going to break down the really complex and honestly dangerous history between India and Pakistan.
And really, at the absolute center of this whole story is this one stunning yet incredibly volatile piece of land, Jammu and Kashmir. You have to understand, for more than 70 decades, this one mountainous region has been the flashpoint. It's been the main reason for multiple wars and just countless smaller fights. So the big question is, how did it get to this point, right? Why have these two nuclear-armed neighbors, who share so much history, been stuck in this conflict for over 75 years? Well, to really get it, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning.
And you know, the roots of this rivalry, they weren't just planted when these nations were born. No, they were literally forged in the fire of that creation itself.
Okay, so picture this. It's 1947. The British Empire is making a really hasty exit from the Indian subcontinent. And what do? They basically just draw some lines on a map, carving out two brand new nations. The whole thing was based mainly on religion. You had India with a Hindu majority, but set up to be secular, and then Pakistan with a Muslim majority. So right from the start, this act of creation was also an act of division.
But let me be clear. This political split, it was no peaceful divorce. Not at all. Those hastily drawn borders basically ignited absolute chaos and just horrific violence between different communities. And that led directly, immediately to the First War, because both new countries instantly wanted control of Kashmir.
The human cost, it's just staggering to think about. This event, the partition, it triggered one of the largest and fastest migrations in all of human history. We're talking about 15 million people. Think about that. Muslims fleeing to Pakistan, Hindus and Sikhs fleeing to India, all of them just uprooted from the only homes they'd ever known.
And right in the middle of all that chaos, with millions of people on the move, this horrific communal violence just exploded. It's estimated that somewhere around 1 million people were killed. And that trauma, that is the very foundation of this rivalry. It created this deep legacy of mistrust that you can still feel today.
So what was so special about Kashmir? Well, its unique situation basically made it the epicenter of the whole conflict. See, it was what they called a princely state, and it had a Muslim-majority population, but its ruler was Hindu. So when armed tribesmen from Pakistan invaded, the ruler panicked and appealed to India for help. He agreed to join India in exchange for their military support, and that one decision, it cemented Kashmir as the absolute core, unresolved issue of the whole partition.
So with the battle lines literally drawn in the sand over Kashmir, this rivalry pretty quickly escalated. It went from the chaos of partition into a whole new era of full-scale, conventional war.
The next 25 years or so were basically defined by three major wars. First, you had the one in 1947, which ended with Kashmir being split by a ceasefire line. Then, in 1965, a much bigger war broke out, but it pretty much ended in a stalemate. But the third one in 1971, well, that one would change the map of South Asia forever.
And during this time, we saw a massive leap in technology. The difference is night and day. The 1947 war was fought with basic rifles and old-school propeller planes, but by 1971, both sides were rolling out modern tanks, flying supersonic fighter jets, and even setting up naval blockades. The scale and the sheer deadliness of the fighting had just grown exponentially.
Now, here's a crucial point. The 1971 war wasn't actually about Kashmir. It was sparked by a brutal civil war happening in East Pakistan. You see, Pakistan was two separate pieces of land back then, and the East was totally dominated by West Pakistan. India decided to step in and support the independence movement in the East, and that's what led to a full-blown war.
And the result was a swift, decisive victory for India. Just look at this number, 93,000. That's how many Pakistani soldiers surrendered in the East. It was a deeply humiliating defeat for Pakistan, and it led directly to the creation of a brand new country, Bangladesh. This moment just fundamentally changed the balance of power in the entire region. You can imagine that kind of defeat, it spurred a profound change in Pakistan's strategic thinking. It basically set the nation on a path to get the ultimate weapon, the one thing that would completely rewrite the rules of this conflict forever.
So, just a few years after that war, in 1974,
India tested its first nuclear device. For the next couple of decades, Pakistan was playing catch-up, working feverishly on its own program. And then, in 1998, after India conducted another round of tests, Pakistan responded with its own. And just like that, the subcontinent was officially nuclear armed.
And this changed absolutely everything. Suddenly, the idea of another huge, all-out war like the ones in 65 or 71, it carried a risk that was just unthinkable: nuclear annihilation. This idea of mutually assured destruction meant that total war was now terrifyingly irrational for both sides.
But here's the thing. The conflict didn't end, not by a long shot. Instead, it kind of mutated. It moved out of the open and deep into the shadows, fought in clever ways that were designed to stay just below that nuclear red line.
So this new battlefield wasn't about massive armies of tanks anymore. Both sides completely shifted their tactics to operate under that nuclear shadow. This meant things like supporting insurgencies, using proxy groups to do the dirty work, and engaging in acts of cross-border terrorism that were, deniable. It was all designed to inflict damage without triggering a full-scale, potentially world-ending war.
The Cargo War in 1999, that was really the first major test of this new reality. What happened was, Pakistani soldiers secretly crossed the line of control and occupied these strategic mountain peaks on the Indian side. The fighting that followed was incredibly fierce and bloody, but, and this is key, it stayed contained to that one area. It was a stark reminder that even with nuclear weapons in the background, two countries could still fight a brutal but limited war.
Okay, so that brings us into the 21st century. And, you guessed it, technology and strategy have evolved yet again, creating a whole new set of rules for this very old rivalry. The face of this confrontation today, it looks a lot more like this. Back in 2019, after a terrorist attack in Kashmir, India launched precision airstrikes deep inside Pakistan, something they hadn't done since 1971. Pakistan hit back, which led to this dramatic aerial dogfight. The whole thing was fast, it was high-tech, and it was very carefully managed by both sides to keep it from spiraling into a full-blown war.
And really, this is the state of the rivalry today. It's this strange no war, no peace stalemate. It plays out in constant skirmishes along the border, in digital espionage through cyber warfare, and just relentless hostility on the diplomatic stage. And hanging over every single drone strike, every angry press statement, is that ever-present shadow of nuclear deterrence. It's a constant reminder that the next major crisis is always just one miscalculation away.
So if you look back at the whole history, from that initial messy division of Kashmir to the stalemate of 65, from India's decisive victory in 71 to its tactical success in the Cargo War, you can see how each conflict has shaped the next one. But here's the key takeaway. Not a single one of them has resolved the fundamental issues that are driving this whole rivalry.
It's pretty incredible to think about. This rivalry started with soldiers on foot and old propeller planes. Today, it's fought with precision missiles, autonomous drones, and silent cyber attacks. So as the technology of war just keeps getting more advanced, you have to wonder, what does the next chapter of this 75-year-old rivalry even look like?